Welcome back to another video at revealcannabis.com. I'm really excited for this video because when I heard Tamara talk about this subject in one of our group meetings, she taught me some new stuff about making cannabis tea. So I'm really excited to have her on here today. You're going to learn all about cannabis tea, what the benefits are, how to make it, why you might want to consider cannabis tea as an option to all your other ingestion methods, and more. Hi, my name is Andrea Maharg. I'm the founder of Reveal Cannabis, and I'm a certified cannabis coach and educator. And I'm really passionate about learning new awesome things about cannabis and then sharing them with you here on YouTube. So if you love geeking out and learning about this beautiful plant, then make sure you hit subscribe and join us. Let me start out by reading your awesome biography. So Tamara Wilton is a healer, certified medical cannabis coach and educator. She's on the sub-advisory committee with the organization Ingetstion. That's the meeting that we were on together. And she's a member of Cannakeys as well as IMD Health. For the past 4 years, she's been a member of Healer and takes part in monthly seminars to stay current with the research. By the way, side note, if you love cannabis science, you should definitely go check out healer.com. He does some really awesome webinars and things like that. Her journey with cannabis began with perimenopause, but has evolved after learning she had multiple conditions. In the beginning, Tamara felt very lost as a patient, as there wasn't guidance from her doctor or the licensed producers. I hear you, lady. A cannabis Facebook group ended up being her saving grace. On the group, she learned about a cannabis series that led her to Dr. Sulak of healer.com and his program, Healer. Her education turned into a passion for plant medicine. That's my favorite, when you get a little bit of education and you're like off to the races. Listening and taking care of her body is something she truly believes in. Learning about the endocannabinoid system was the part of the puzzle she was missing in understanding her own health. As her knowledge grew more, she wanted to help people that felt lost in navigating their own conditions. With the encouragement and support of her family and friends, she founded Mama Bear Canna Coaching in March of 2021. Her passion for the acidic cannabinoids, and this is where it gets interesting, has led her to focus on cancer and autoimmune conditions. Her next objective is to acquire more education on other plant medicines. Her aspiration is to use all plant medicine knowledge that she obtains to empower other people so they can live their best lives. We're on very similar journeys. Thank you so much for coming on here. Can we start out with just like, why do you love cannabis tea so much?
The biggest thing is I'm a bit lazy when it comes to cannabis. And so cannabis tea it's really a simple way to get the acidic cannabinoids. The acidic cannabinoids are so powerful at small doses compared to CBD and THC. And for me, I've actually been able to lower my neutral cannabinoids, which again is CBD and THC, and use less because I'm using more of the actual plant material.
Can you back up and tell people who might not know what is an acidic cannabinoid versus the neutrals?
So the acidic cannabinoid would be basically the raw plant. That the neutral cannabinoid is when you decarb it or you heat it. So when the plant is raw, it's just basically like a vegetable, and it has all its nutrients, all its terpenes, flavonoids, and everything intact. And for me, I'm more earthy, and so I really want the plant. I want to use the plant the way the plant was meant to be. And I think we rely too much on CBD and THC and miss out on those acidics. And combining them can be really great as well.
If you didn't know already, the plant doesn't actually grow CBD or THC. It grows these precursor molecules that are called acidic cannabinoids because it's actually like a little hydrocarbon side chain on the THC or CBD molecule, actually all the molecules that the plant grows. And if you heat that by smoking it or by putting it in your oven and decarbing it before you make it into something, that little side chain breaks off. And instead of THCA, you have THC, and instead of CBDA, you have CBD. People are starting to be very, very interested in what could we do with this plant if it wasn't heated first, and how might THCA and CBDA benefit me?
The biggest thing with the acidic cannabinoids is you can use much less. They're more powerful at a very tiny dose. And if you make the tea and then you put the bud under your tongue, if you don't want to eat it, you'll notice it's really spicy. Like you can still feel that taste in your mouth. It's very strong.
What are you saying? How are you saying that the taste correlates to the effect?
Well, I think because you can really taste the terpenes, and the terpenes themselves are powerful. And the actual plant, you know, starts out with CBGA. So that would be your first acidic cannabinoid. And the CBGA also has very powerful properties as well. There is a couple different cancer studies that have come out regarding CBGA as well as CBG. And so for me, that's powerful. And then of course they make the CBDA and the THCA. So depending on which variety you have will depend on which acidic cannabinoids that you get. You know, for me, it's like, if you look at a carrot, if you eat a raw carrot, it has a lot of flavor. To me, it's stronger, it's more powerful. Where if you cook the carrot, you're actually taking some of those vitamins and minerals out of that carrot. And I guess that's kind of how I look at cannabis. If you decarb it, yes, it's still powerful, but it's not going to be as powerful as the actual plant before you do anything to it.
I'm taking a class right now with Jason Wilson from Curious About Cannabis, and it is fantastic. And we just last week were really delving into the other properties that are in the cannabis plant itself, like stilbenoids and aldehydes and all these other things. Very few of those are actually in the cannabis bud or flower, and a lot of this is housed in other places in the plant. And he was talking about, you know, when we say, are we using whole plant medicine, are we actually using the whole plant? No, often we're just using the bud, and then we're taking just the trichomes from the bud and calling that whole plant medicine. And I just think it's fascinating to think about how simple it is to use most of the plant, not the whole plant. You're not going to throw the stalks necessarily into your tea, but you could throw cannabis bud into your tea. People make tea out of the leaves as well. And even cannabis root tea is, I haven't tried it myself, but apparently really beneficial. So can you tell me about the process of how you go about making your tea the lazy way? I love that it's the lazy way.
Okay. So for me, I do basically I take a pea-sized amount of bud, and I like to mix mine with green rooibos. I like to have it with other teas. You can do it with black tea, because the other thing with cannabis is it actually can enhance other herbs. So if you're making like dandelion root tea, having the two combined is going to be a really powerful concoction. So I take basically a pea-sized amount of bud, I boil my water, and then I put the bud and my rooibos tea, and I basically steep it for about 5 to 8 minutes. So again, me being lazy, I probably will just leave the bud in there for however long I'm going to drink the tea. And then I don't put any fats or anything in it. And yeah, I basically drink it. And then after that, I either will put the bud under my tongue, which I have learned through my education, because then it's going submucosal through the body as well. Or I'll eat it. That is another option that you can do as well. And there is some studies on pain, because when it comes to the acidic cannabinoids, it's not as quick. You don't just drink a cup of tea and you'll all of a sudden have no pain. But if you have nausea and you drink a cup of tea, there's a good chance you're not going to have any nausea afterwards. It will work that fast with some things.
When Tamara talks about it's a more powerful molecule, there's one study that I read that said that CBDA might be 10 to 100 to 1,000 times more anti-inflammatory. For example, that's one of the benefits of just CBD, which is crazy because we're all crazy about CBD, but we have CBDA in the nug. Like, we also have it available to us. And then of course, CBD is significantly more anti-inflammatory than something like an aspirin, with none of the side effects. And if you're able to just take, you said a pea-sized nug?
Yeah, just a pea-sized mug, and that will give you about 10 milligrams. So let's say THCA, it should give you about 10 milligrams of THCA. So if you've got like a pain condition, you're probably going to want to do that tea a couple times a day to give you full relief. And you'll probably notice it within a couple weeks. Now, eating the bud also makes a huge difference as well, besides just drinking the tea, because then you're getting everything from that little tiny bit of bud. I can give you a little bit of statistics. So when it comes to CBDA, like you were talking about, it's 10 times more potent than even CBD for seizure model. It's 100 times for inflammatory pain, 10,000 times for nausea, and 50,000 times for anxiety.
Then CBD?
Yeah, that's how much more powerful CBDA is. And I believe THCA is something like 50 times more powerful than THC. But again, with THCA, THC are more different than CBD and CBDA. CBD and CBDA are much closer related. CBDA inhibits breast cancer cells migration. CBDA, you know, the biggest thing too, I didn't mention is CBDA will not turn down THC and CB1 receptors. So it does not do the same like CBD does.
Yeah. So you're saying if I'm used to taking CBD and THC together, and we know that for lots of people, CBD has a balancing effect on some of the negative side effects of THC. So if you take them together, you might not feel as psychoactively high, or you might not feel as like woozy. But you're saying if I was going to take my regular dose of THC, but instead have CBDA, I couldn't expect it to buffer some of those side effects from THC. That's interesting. Okay, thanks for pointing that out.
The other thing with the acidic cannabinoids is they use the COX enzyme rather than the regular enzyme that you see with CBD and THC. So that is also something to keep in mind. Medications shouldn't be an issue, though I haven't been able to find a definitive answer on that as well.
That's one of the problems with CBDA being so newly studied, is although it likely has an extremely high safety profile, as do all of the natural plant cannabinoids, we don't actually know what happens if you're taking it with other pharmaceutical medications, which is why if you're considering any cannabis medication and you are taking pharmaceutical medications, first, of course, talk to your doctor, maybe talk to a cannabis informed doctor, especially, and then get your blood tested more often to make sure that your cannabis regimen isn't messing up how your body metabolizes some of those other medicines as well. That's a really good point. One of the things that intrigued me when I first heard you talking about this was I've always told people to put a fat with their cannabis tea, because we know that THC and CBD like fat and they bind well to fat, and you'll be able to hopefully get more bioavailability if you consume them with fat, if you're taking them internally. And you said, no, like we don't actually want the fat. So can you explain that?
Well, I mean, you can. The big thing with the fat is as soon as you add fat to the tea, you're going to pull out more of, depending on your flower, either THC or CBD. And for some people, that might not be desirable, because if they might be more sensitive to THC, even though THC and THCA work very, very well together, especially for sleep. So I'm always very careful. And anyone I start on the tea, they take that pea-sized amount and they watch their body and they see how they feel. I also get them to do it at night, because even though THCA, you shouldn't feel a high or a psychoactivity from it, there are some people that do react to it. I am definitely one. But when it comes to the acidic cannabinoids, they are more water soluble, and that people don't realize. And
yeah, that's what got me. I hadn't made that connection, that if you're wanting to pull out the acidic cannabinoids, you're going to have to focus on what they like to stick to, and they like to stick to water better than fat. It's possible that you will get a little bit of the THC or the CBD in your tea. And that might be because you're coming close to decarb time and temperature, although you're really not with boiling water from your kettle, but also because the plant naturally by itself slowly degrades the THCA and CBDA into the neutral cannabinoids. So if you need THC free tea, then you shouldn't be consuming THCA tea, because there is a possibility that there's a little bit in there for sure.
I would say it's a very minute.
And of course, we're not doctors, right? Tamara and I are not doctors, and we're not giving you advice. We're not telling you to go like do all of this stuff. And some people are super sensitive to THC and might feel it. So you really do have to be careful when you're starting out. Although, again, cannabis has an extremely high safety profile. So, you know, we're not talking about heroin or something here.
There is some really great things THCA does, and one of the reasons I'm actually using it is it modulates the immune system. So originally when I started cannabis tea, I was more doing a CBD and a THC variety. And then once learning a little more about THCA, I've been really trying to have more THCA in my body. So it's very anti-inflammatory, very neuroprotective. It does have anti-cancer properties. I have seen a few studies with THCA affecting different cancers. So anyone that I'm working with cancer, I will always have them on the acidic cannabinoids for that reason. And it is a possible allosteric modulator of the CB1 receptor. So it doesn't have very much activity. It's very low activity at the CB1 and CB2, but it is a little bit stronger on the CB1. And you'll see that in different science, as well as it's possible that it promotes stronger ability for the endocannabinoids and the cannabinoids on the endocannabinoid system as well, which I found very interesting. Yeah, and for like anecdotal evidence, there's been, just following some of the webinars, there's been a few chats where people have talked about having autoimmune conditions, and just from being the tea, they're not having issues with it. And myself, I have one condition, which is Raynaud's. And since doing the cannabis tea, I'm not noticing as many issues with it. So I think because it modulates the immune system, I think it is very beneficial if you do have an autoimmune, because autoimmune is really tough. There's so many out there, and women, we seem to get it once our hormones change. All of a sudden we seem to get autoimmune conditions. So if you've got a tea that's going to help, why not?
Yeah, especially when it can be that easy. This plant is just marvelous and so exciting to like learn all of these little intricacies of how we can use the plant differently. The exact same plant, like whatever plant you're growing in your garden or you purchase at the dispensary, you can take that same plant and make it into a beautiful brownie or smoke a joint or put it in tea and have maybe significantly different effects. So that's lovely. You're really interested in the cannabis tea. I really like coffee. Could I not just put my little nug of CBD or THC cannabis into my French press when I'm making my coffee in the morning? Is there any reason why I would want to do it as a tea instead of as a coffee?
Actually, really, you could use it in any hot beverage. The only thing with the coffee is it's probably going to have a different taste in your coffee, depending on how much. And starting with a pea size, like I don't always use a pea size amount. Sometimes I use more than that. The THC variety I've only probably been doing for 2 months, where the regular CBD and THC variety I've been doing for over a year. So the THC variety is newer. So yeah, you could put it in your coffee. I wouldn't put it in your, I wouldn't ground it with your beans.
No,
I think you might lose it. So I would definitely put the bud like straight into the coffee if you wanted to. And I would definitely eat it. Or if you don't want to eat it, I'd at least put it under your tongue for at least 10 minutes just to get those extra cannabinoids, and as well as the terpenes, the flavonoids and everything else would be beneficial.
Okay. Everyone who knows me well knows I'm dying right now because I can't stand the taste of cannabis. So the thought of walking around with a nug under my tongue for 10 minutes, oh my God. But okay, like I'll try it. I'll give it a whirl. Anything for science. It's so interesting to me because most of my clients and almost all my students are American, and we have a legal regulated cannabis system here and have for almost 4 years. And yet they have much better access often to products, like good, healthy products on the market. If you're interested in checking out, if you're in the States and you're interested in some of healer.com's oil, Dr. Dustin Sulak's oils, I also recommend them to my American clients, and you can get 20% off with the code Reveal Cannabis down below if you'd like. So definitely go check that out. But yeah, you're right. Here in Canada, we're kind of DIY for lots of things still.
And if you look at Dr. Zulek's products and you take a look at all his products and take a look at the cannabinoid chart that he has on top, you'll see he's mixing the neutral with the acids. And in Canada, we're not doing that. And I feel like we're missing out. So if CBD isn't working, CBDA might be more beneficial for you, or the combination of the two, which I do find kind of interesting, that you could use a smaller amount but get a better effect. And it can be more cost effective too, because if you're using CBD and you're having to use 100 milligrams of CBD, that can be quite expensive. But if you can lower that just by getting some CBD flower or even hemp flower, you've just lowered how much you're taking, but yet your effects are much higher. For a pea size amount, whether you're doing 2 pieces amount, or that's still quite a bit lower than that oil.
I guess it really depends on how concentrated your oil is, but it's an extremely cost-effective way to do it, and extremely time-effective way to do it.
Mhm.
And also pretty bioavailable ways to do it. Like, there's lots of benefits for doing cannabis tea in this way.
Yeah, it's simple. And one of your other guests, I watched one of your other YouTube videos. He was talking about the flower disappearing. Well, that's not something I want. Like, I don't want it to become in drinks and everything, because to me, I think that's an abuse. We're not actually listening to the plant. The roots, every part of that plant is healing. I've seen the science on the leaves. They have lots of different properties in the leaves. Like, there is, every part of that plant is healing. So if we start to turn it into just a tiny dose put into something, we're going to lose our entourage of the cannabinoids. And you might as well call it, to me, that's like sugar. Like, you're just changing it. And where I think the cannabis tea can be just as simple, and it comes way back. There were, like, if you look back in the history of the cannabis tea, it's quite interesting. I won't go over the history, but you might find it interesting yourself to look into it, and look into all the different uses, what it was used for in Morocco, just because it's fascinating. It's something that really is old, but can be new again.
I think about this a lot, that we have several 1,000-year history of using the plant in all its natural forms. And despite what lots of people think, not actually smoked. Like, we've been smoking cannabis for a while, but traditionally for thousands of years, it would have been eaten or made into a tea. And so we have thousands of years of history with it, then 100 years of prohibition, and we're like a couple of years out of prohibition here. So there is so much that was lost and destroyed, and we're just starting to wake up to what people have been doing forever.
Yeah. And even, I think Egyptians, the women bathed in it during their hormones and stuff. And I thought that was really interesting too. So there is a lot to do with the flower. I don't believe smoking is bad. I believe that all methods are good, because again, they're going to hit different targets in the body, and they're going to do different things in your body. So to me, it's an entourage. The more you can get in your body, to me, the better. And I think we've really been deprived. And I think that is part of the reason you're seeing more cancer and autoimmune, is because we're not actually listening to the plants. Even our medications, we're no longer taking the whole plant. We're, making them into synthetics and stuff. And I think we're missing out. I really do. And I think the future, I think cannabis is going to bring back plant medicine. And I'm hopeful that the future is going to be more plants, and that we're going to start learning about more plants and understanding them, and hopefully be more aware of our own health. And hopefully, as the endocannabinoid system gets more known, because that's my biggest goal, besides cannabis tea, would be learning about, teaching people about the endocannabinoid system. If you go on to my Facebook page, you are going to learn about the endocannabinoid system. And or if I meet you, guess what? You're looking at the endocannabinoid system, because I feel like it was taken from me. I was always researching on my computer when it came to health. I had a son who had asthma. I learned about vitamin D, long time ago. And the endocannabinoid system, not till I all of a sudden use cannabis. What? Here I've been putting supplements and different things in my body, but I had no idea about this amazing system that is so huge. And today we're still not teaching it in the medical schools. Like, to me, that's a big problem. And I think when it comes to cannabis and even dosing, you're actually really have to listen to your body and see what it actually needs.
We have this saying at the Cannabis Coaching Institute that it seems like cannabis is a gateway drug onto learning about herbal medicine. There's so many people who get into it because they love cannabis. It's made such an impression and impact on their lives or the lives of someone who they love. And then they learn about terpenes and they're like, what the hell? And then they learn about, you know, all these other plant medicines and all the ways that you can use the whole plant. So yeah, for lots of people, this is just the beginning into paying attention to how we feel, because you have to with cannabis if you're using it for health. You can't just pop a gummy every day and hope that you're going to be okay. That's why you hire people like Tamara and I, is to help you through this process. Can you tell me more about what you do with Mama Bear Canna Coaching?
So with Mama Bear Canna Coaching, I actually started it due to some people I was helping with cancer. I basically educate patients and try to empower them because I felt very lost in my cannabis journey. And for me, it's really important that it's not just THC and CBD, it is the acidic cannabinoids as well, because they are very, very powerful. And because I'm more earth, I like to use the plant the way the plant actually would be used if it was, you know, growing in your garden. And I basically specialize in autoimmune due to the autoimmune issues that I have. And I also specialize in cancer. I've really found cancer very interesting when it comes to the cannabinoids. I've participated in a number of webinars with a number of different doctors and oncologists that have really talked even about the acidic cannabinoids. I've even talked about some of the cases on some of the webinars that I'm working with. And every time they've talked a bit about the acidic cannabinoids. And for me, I see cancer and the autoimmune as an imbalance in the endocannabinoid system. And I think if we can just get the endocannabinoid system stronger, and I believe that's going to take the entourage. I do help people with sleep. I have helped people with anxiety just by using the cannabis tea with nothing really else. And those results are very surprising. I've also had people where they've used THC, they've smoked it for a long time. And as soon as I taught them about the cannabis tea, they actually are sleeping better than they ever have.
I just really want to come back that your perspective on this as a whole plant medicine and actually like actually walking the talk, because a lot of people talk about this in that way, but you're actually doing it. So it's been a really refreshing conversation to have with you. If you are looking to connect with Tamara, all of her contact details are down below. Make sure that you reach out to her and ask her any questions that you have. Thank you so much for being on the channel and answering all my canna questions. I'm going to link to a cannabis tea recipe, and I put that in air quotes because we know how easy it was to make. I'm going to put a link to that down below, so make sure you sign up for my newsletter while you are there. I send out great cannabis tips and tricks and discounts to products that I absolutely love. So head over there and sign up for that too, and I will see you on the next video. Bye.